Welcome, everybody, to Broadcast Team Alpha, where we bring you cutting edge conversation while exploring the quantum, I can't say it enough times tonight, quantum possibility, because we're really going there tonight, guys. So put your seatbelts on. Thank you for being here. Thank you, as always, for all the great chat that happens. If you have any questions for our inspiring guests tonight, please put them in capital letters so I can see them easily. And I just want to invite you to subscribe to our station if you have not yet subscribed. Also, while you're there, click the thumbs up if you like what you hear tonight. And if you would like to get notifications of when our shows come up, sometimes we do some pop-ups. And, we've also got the Friday show, the Quantum Wellbeing Show, that happens at 7:30 on Friday evening Eastern Time. So if you want to be reminded when the shows are, just click that little bell and you'll get notifications. I also want to invite you to the Friday show. It's the Quantum Wellbeing Show. We're going to be over there at 7:30. It's a quick show. It's 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. And most of the time, I try to keep it at 30 minutes because it's Friday night, right? And our attention spans aren't what they used to be. So we're keeping it short and we're having fun. And we're talking about a lot of health topics, really timely topics, right? Because, well, we don't have to go into that. And I just want to tell you about our friends that we are going to be affiliated with over at the Conscious Awakening Network. We're going to have our shows streaming on their platform too. And they've got all kinds of amazing things coming up. And we're going to probably have some classes over there and do all kinds of fun stuff. So check out the Conscious Awakening Network. Augie, please tell us about our guest.
Yes, this is going to be a delight because we have Zaysan Saldusky with us. And he comes very highly recommended by a common friend of us over in Sedona, Arizona, Tom Dongo up there. And I think he's listening tonight. So I enjoy giving him a plug too. Anyway, Zaysan, he wears many hats. He do a lot of things and he have a lot of strange experiences. And he is directing an organization to rescue children from child trafficking, which is somewhat dangerous in sometimes, but he seems to get along all right with it. And he's got some stories in that arena too that maybe that will be for another show. But also, he is a traveler. He's an author of 5 books under the title of the Plejaren Diaries. And you can find those books on Amazon. And also for those of you that like to surf the internet while you listen, you can find him on YouTube, of course. And hey, that's where you're listening right now, probably. And also he has a website, The Quest X. I'm going to spell this because it gets convoluted. The Quest ECSS.org. So I think that as close as I can get it. And he's also had some strange experiences with extraterrestrials. He's been on their ships. He's been taken to their worlds. And there are messages for us from our friends in space. And we're going to hear about that tonight. So stay with us because this you want to know about. So without any more from me, welcome to the show, Zaysan.
Welcome, Z.
How you doing? Hi. It's fun to be here.
Yeah. Good to have you. This is going to be amazing. And you are multifaceted and, dare I say, multidimensional, I'm sure. How did this, you were telling us earlier that you've had some challenging life experiences, like being shot at because you tell the truth, things like that. But what has unfolded for you over the years to bring you to this place now? How did this start?
It was kind of funny. I was once a week I train people that are ex-military and stuff that want to be contractors and down in the glades. And so every once in a while I wander off into the swamp. And so I know my area really well, but it's very far from anything. So you would never really find anybody out there. And we've never had any visitors. So anyway, I'm just going around, and it just sort of comes to life to me because it's so natural and it's untouched and everything. And, they say it's really dangerous and stuff, but, it doesn't really affect me. And so anyways, I'm walking along and I'm following down this path, and I decide to go this other way one time. And as I do, I catch out of the side of my eye that there was somebody over there, and they didn't fit any of the environment. I'm starting to think, am I smelling something here that's making me a little different or something, right? And so I'm just sort of paying attention to what I'm seeing. And this beautiful lady with blonde hair and had this darker blue jumpsuit on was caught up, I could tell, in the mangroves. If you don't know what mangroves are, it's kind of like the roots aren't in the ground yet, and they branch out, and it's very difficult walking through mangroves. And this happened to be off to the side, and obviously this lady got tangled up in them. And then below the roots that are coming out is what we call the suck, because if you step in it, you sink down to your knee, right? And so anyways, I could see her there. And so, I looked at it as though when I see an animal or something, an animal that's trapped or something, and, you approach very cautiously and slowly and calmly, and then you set it free, and that's it, right? And so anyways, I decided to walk that direction just to check out what I was seeing and seeing if I was just delusional or something. And when I got over to her, I could tell she was scared. And so I just kind of hung back for a little bit and stood there in her presence and stuff. And I'm going through my head all these scenarios of what the heck is this? It's happening in front of me. So I said, well, whatever, I'll just go for it. And so then I got a little closer and a little closer. And then I could see that her legs were tangled up in those roots sort of thing. And she was stuck in the muck. And so I always had a knife on me. And so I pulled the knife out, and she kind of, moves back a little bit. And then, so I open it up and I kind of show her what I want to do with it. And then I hold it over towards her so she can grab it. And then she does, and she inspects it and stuff. And then, I reach for it and she gives it to me. So anyways, make a long story short, I get her out of it and I step back from her. And as she starts to walk, I could tell she wasn't walking really well. And so, she must have hurt her leg. So then, I make motions with my hands and stuff to pick her up and carry her where she needed to go. And, timidly, she agrees to that. And so, she's about, 5'6" or so. And so I'm anticipating a certain weight, right? And when I go to pick her up, I almost threw her over my head because she couldn't have been more than 25 pounds. And wow. It's because they can change that. I didn't know it at the time, but, to accommodate. And so I'm kind of surprised because of how timid she was or scared. She puts her arm around my shoulder to help me carry her. And then she keeps directing me to where to go. And we come to this opening that I hadn't been to before in the swamp. And it was a big mound. It had a lot of shells and stuff on it. And I didn't know at the time what the mounds were or anything, but she asked me to set her down. And so I set her down, and I'm thinking to myself, am I going to leave this person out here in the middle of absolutely nowhere? But then again, so much weirdness is happening. So I figured, well, I'll just step back a little bit and, get completely out of her way. And so I go back, and when I turn around, I can see her moving her hands like this, and then this blue light, and she's gone. And so I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, that was fun, sort of thing. And I hope I'm still, mentally correct. and I go on about it, and it never got out of my mind, until the next time. So anyways, that's how it all started. And then,
wow.
then how I began the book thing is all my friends, I mentioned some of the stuff to my friends, and they all started getting, asking me all these questions, and it was the same questions over and over and over again, and then, so what I ended up doing is I decided just to write a book, and then they could read the book and they could, then ask me better questions. And when I did that, it just took off, and suddenly all these people were interested in this experience that I was having. And since then, it's just, through the roof.
Phenomenal. Wow. Phenomenal. Wow.
So that was the introduction.
Now, did you get to know any more about her later on, or do you know who she was?
Oh, man, there's so much information. But essentially, when I went back out there in a week or so and went out, and I wasn't intending on going to that specific spot, but then my curiosity got me, and I thought, I'd just go over and take a look and see what there is. And when I did, I'm looking around and I see that blue light come down. And I was thinking to myself, because I'm a lot different than a lot of people, because, I've been shot 9 times. So fear of death isn't really there for me anymore. And I was thinking, well, if this is what I think it is, and I get up there and they eat me, like all the movies show and everything, you say, well, that'd be a great story to tell in heaven, right? How'd you get here, sort of thing. And so anyways, I go into the ship. It just takes me immediately into the ship. And in front of me is standing 6 individuals, and there's 3 men and 3 women. And I'm looking across, I'm not seeing anybody real excited to see me, right? And it was almost like a burden. And so, I look at each one at a time, and just because that's the kind of thing I do. And none of them are they're not encouraging me to want to be there. And then I get down to the end where Sam Jess is, which is the one I rescued in the swamp. And she's like, hi, and so it just opened up the gateway for me, to start a dialogue. And then I started to learn so much about them, that they were a lab ship. They really didn't have anything to do with contact or anything like that at that moment. And, I had to go through, we tried to have a dialogue, and I was having a really hard time talking to them. And one of the things was, like for an example, I tell them there's a guy without a shirt walking down the street. Well, 16 hours later, they're very excited, and they're still asking me questions about that. And what I ended up learning was that they see things from so many different points of view that they could actually, by the time they understand it, they could be there and be experiencing it and know exactly what's happening. And so to bridge that gap, because I was getting tired of this, it was to show them like films and stuff like that, and then have them ask me questions. And it just really took off from there. But yeah, it was kind of funny too. Story behind that is like, here I run the most successful child rescue program in the world, and I write a book about aliens. So that's probably not going to be the best move in the world, but I wasn't getting hardly any donations anyway, so I figured, I'll just go with it and see where it takes it. But I found that they've taught me so many things. I leave little nuggets in each of my books that explain ways that their ways and how they do things, how things operate, the energies that we could be using that we don't, and why, and all those things. I learned how time doesn't exist. Life doesn't exist. It's more of an illusion.
So you mentioned that that was a lab ship, and they're not involved in contact. Is there a special group that's involved with contact? How does that work?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because what had happened after I had met them, like they have explained to me that they saw humans as like monsters, violent, and how we were so unique in the way that we would friend animals that could kill us, and those sort of things. And so there was they have like a command or something like that. I have a hard time with words, because it isn't exactly true in the sense of the definition. But anyways, they had this other people that they go through, the command, I call it. And they like that. It's wanted them to continue the contact with me, because for some reason I was able to bridge gaps that they weren't accustomed to. And so we continued, the process. But it all has to do with your frequency. Your frequency is like the passport through the universe, and it's unique. And so response to each of those things is unique. And one of the things that so they were very uncomfortable in the beginning to be my, people that were talking to me as far as what contact means. And it's kind of funny. There's so much that's involved in this, but essentially, I want to be a contactee. I'm telling them, it's like, yeah, you're showing me all this really cool stuff and ways of leaving the body and all this. And, so I want to be a contactee. And they said, no, you're too old. You're no good. They still tell me this day, which is funny because I still am learning these things. I think what I should say first, though, is in order to continue the contact with these people and to get to know these people, I had to go through a really hard process for me. And I'm easy with this stuff, but it was still hard. And I call it becoming negative. And that is that every time I go on that ship, I have to be absolutely negative in the sense of I can't hide anything. I can't lie to them. I have to be completely open. And so, as we progressed on, I just became in love with these people. They were just so beautiful and kind, and I liked being with them. And there was a point at which, like, when you anytime you go on to one of their ships, you're scanned in a sense for, different things, diseases or some of them might be contagious to them. So anyways, they saw these scars and the bullet holes in my body. And they asked me about that. And I'm thinking, oh man, how do I do this? Because if I tell them, they're going to know that I'm a monster, right? The one that they perceive me to be. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm debating on that and trying to figure out how it is that I'm going to explain this to them. And what happened was so beautiful. I said, okay, well, I took Sam Jess aside because we had sort of become like troublemakers and buddies. And, and she was there's so much to tell you guys. But anyway, she took me to her room and we laid on her bed, and there's this like this screen that she can pull over that isn't really there sort of thing. And to show her this movie, because the only movie I could think of that it'd be the best way to explain to them was the movie Taken, which is kind of representative of what I do. And I told her, this isn't me and stuff. And I'm thinking that it's just me and her because I wanted her to see it to get her impression first. And so as we're watching this, she's being completely consumed by the movie. And she's got like her face up there, especially towards the end, when he gets to his daughter and then they embrace. And I'm hearing noises out in the rest of the room, out in the rest of the ship. And here it was, they were all watching the same movie. So I didn't know that they were all watching it at the same time. And I was saying, please, this isn't me, but this shows you how people will put themselves in harm's way, for the greater good. And in that process, so Sam Jess gets up and she leaves the room, and I get my coffee up there, which is really cool. It's really good. That's a whole nother story. But anyways, I'm drinking that coffee and thinking to myself, well, it was great to meet these people and stuff. And I just hope they don't eat me before they throw me out of here, And so once I've about finished my coffee, Sam Jess comes back in the room, grabs me by the hand. He says, come on out, and I'm thinking, okay, here it goes. And we go out there and they're all crying or leaking, and through the emotion that they saw spent in that movie. And they look at me and, they feel the scars and stuff. And so many times I've been doing speeches in churches and stuff where there was different pastors from other organizations there, and they would lay hands on me, right, in a big circle in a big group. And I always feel something from that, good. But when I was on the ship and they took me out, and I call it the living room because to me, it's a big RV, right? But, and it's easy for me to identify things that way. But anyway, they put their hands on me, and I could feel this strength and this power as though they were pushing me down, but it was their energy. And I went to my knee, and I just felt this flood of just everything leaving me. All this pain and the stress that I had had over the years, and they accepted me for that. But it took several of those events, and each time it was a major challenge for me because I didn't want to lose my contact with them. But they always surprised me in the way they reacted to who I was. And now, as far as the contact goes, they pick like the younger crowds, and they had introduced me to a group that they had before they had met me. And these people, I was, several different species was there that took us to this place where I would meet them. And when I met them, in a long story short, I just really didn't connect with any of them. And I was so disappointed because they were so interested in who built the pyramids, where's Atlantis, and all this. And, they couldn't even understand the concept that I had, which is when, it's like when people astral travel, they have an impression that they're going to find out who killed Kennedy. And in reality, when they get out of their body, there's so much candy in front of them, they forget all about what they thought they was going to see. And that's the same way it is with me every day with these aliens. There's just so much beauty. So anyways, I was all disappointed, and I go back to the ship, and they're all so happy that I didn't connect with them because they weren't able to get through and get the messaging through for the purpose of contact, which is to change our consciousness. And then there was later down the road, after they mapped a lot of what my frequency was telling them, and they started to select other people, which were much younger. Like there's several videos that you can see like on YouTube and everything, where like this one Chinese girl is walking along and all these dead plants are next to it. And as she walks by, they come alive. And they're seeing these things as miracles and stuff like that, which is a whole nother story. But what it is that these people, these young people that they are using as contactees, are to learn the methods and the love that these Plejarens possess. And they're not to be teachers, and they're not to go out and show anything off. They're just supposed to live their life with these new additions to who we really are. Right? Because we limit ourselves to our potential. We are so much more than what we think that we are. And so, anyways, that's how contact is creating. And it's like the 100th monkey. They teach these young people, and as they go through life, they, other people will see it, and positivity attracts, negativity repels. And so it will eventually, hopefully over like 50 years, it will change our consciousness, where our consciousness won't be to look to the government for answers, but it will be in community with other people, which comes about what natural law is all about.
Yeah, so that's about how they more or less think. Then it is obvious that they have a very highly advanced technology. But also, what about their spiritual development, the spiritual knowledge of, I'm sure they probably gotten over the really old guy sitting on the cloud out there, the one with the long beard and the long hair. They call him God. I think they gotten over that concept. But what do they know about spirituality and source and anything like that?
Well, that's another big topic too. That's why I've had to write so many books, right? And like when I was starting to learn some of the stuff, they talk about natural law. It's like when they're from birth, they're guided. And so like whatever the interest of is of the baby, which this is really a short story, but they feed that interest that child has. And it develops, and they go on, they move, and they get more and more advanced in a very short period of time. And the reason for that is there's never a depletion of source or people to work, right? In certain things, like here on Earth, for instance, it was a time when factories and skilled factory workers was needed. And then we moved into the computer industry, which lacked the number of people that was necessary to have the education to work it. Well, when you follow natural law, you never have that depletion because you're already following the path that you're going, right? Or as a civilization. And so when like magic, what we think is magic, you see somebody levitating or you see them doing like miracles and things like this. There is no miracle, and there is none of this stuff that we're witnessing. What we are witnessing is the magic that we create, that we have the ability to do within ourselves. One of the things that they liked was when I called it like the time that Jesus was healing all these people. And when he finished healing them, he told the people, you, the people of this earth, can do all that I can do and more. And so they kind of like that idea. And the trick is that, well, it's no trick, but it's love. We have this brain that is fully functional, and we use all of it, but there's all these files that we can fill inside of our brain that are empty. I mean, right up until our death, we're still logging memories and things, that experiences that happen to us. And when we start to fill all that void in our brains with love, unconditional love, what happens is that we activate what we used to think was magic. And it's like the Plejarens have told me that they're like 5,000 years advanced to us, but their evolution stopped before that 5,000 years, similar to like us. And like, if you look at the apes have plateaued in their evolution. They reached a point where they could use tools slightly, but they're never going to move more past that. Us as humans in our race have already reached that evolution. And right. So now what we have to do is the next step, which is the consciousness. And that is being able to use our abilities both here and beyond. And in other words, fill our brains with love. And then we start to connect to the magic. Now, as far as like, life is an illusion, time is an illusion. I can prove all this stuff and your experience. But, when you get to what source is, or God or heaven, if you believe in Buddhism, if you believe in Christianity, that's all absolutely real, because that is what you have defined your home as. And your home is source, right? So you have source, say it's in space. And the best way to describe this is like, we believe that we have past lives and a current life and such. Well, if you can imagine, you ever see one of those mats that you have for kids or for athletes that are like puzzles, and they push them together so you get this really nice big mat. But if you know what I'm talking about, each of those would be a fragment. Each of those puzzle pieces would be a fragment, right, of the whole. And so you got like consciousness, and he's this big guy sitting on a lazy boy on top of this mat, right? And in front of him is all these TVs, right? And on these TVs, there's a TV series playing on each one of those. Well, we are the star of each one of these TV series. So we are just a projection. We never come here to Earth or whatever planet or whatever being. We are just a projection from source, from our particular fragment. Yeah. And so that fragment is a soul. And so when our TV series is over, then, we reassimilate inside of source. But each of those TV series of our fragment is our lives, past, present, and future. And they're all going on exactly at the same time. So that's why we can have this bleed over and see into those other lives.
I love the way that you explained that. That was fabulous.
It took a long time for me to develop that, but it's so far beyond words,
So good.
It just took me to a place where we had to die, which was all comical too. But, when you leave your body, you're in this coil or this, spin and a flatline, which was kind of representative of dying, right? But it was necessary in order for us to access this thing that we wanted to do. And, it was just really enlightening, and where everything becomes instant when you're beyond this, what we call life, everything, no thought, everything, it's all instantaneously, occurring. And so you have to get used to that. So where is the language for that, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. There is none. Wow. I'm just going to check and see if there's any questions. Barbara Becker Healing has been doing a great job of educating and explaining things really good. Yeah, so I think we're good right now. If you guys have any questions, please put them in capital letters, and I will ask Z. Yeah.
Ask me about flying a pod.
About what? Flying a pod. Yeah, I want to hear that.
It kind of explains a lot of what you're seeing now, as far as us on the ground and everything. There was a time where I'm really into this stuff, right? These like spaceship sort of things, and we're in this amazing vehicle or whatever you want to call it out in space. And there was a time where I made a bet with the guy who runs the command, and I won. And I was teaching him how to play pool, and then I tricked him. Anyway, I won this bet. I said, if I win, I want to go for a ride in the pod, and these pods are kind of like what people call Tic Tacs. I don't know if it's the same thing, but that's what they look like. To me, when I was close to it, it looked more like a coffin, like a larger coffin. But, it was completely solid. There was no seams or anything. And so Sam Jess reluctantly took me to take me out in one. And when we did so, it was really neat. When she touched it, a seam grew where there was like a hatch, and it opened up. And so I thought that was kind of cool. And there was two seats. There's two seats, one in front and one in back, but there was no instruments at all. And so, she got in and told me, and I had to wear the suit. That was really weird too, it's like a living suit. I got to tell you that. There's a suit, and it was about this big, jumpsuit, kind of like when I found her. And I'm with the captain. I go, what do you want me to do with this? And so he goes, well, put it on, begin to put it on. And so I thought, yeah, it's not going to fit. And so I'm thinking, well, they just got me all out of my clothes to laugh at me and play a joke on me, right? Because they have humor. So I opened it up, which it was weird. It had like a cross seam, but it wasn't open until I touched it, and it kind of peeled back and helped me open it. And then as I put my foot inside one of the legs, it didn't stretch. It just actually began to grow. And so as I put the whole thing on and I pull this flap over, it seals. And then I can feel like a comfort in the inside of it, like it's cooling me down. And it's because it's a creation. It's living. The suit was, right? And the same with the helmet. Like when I put this helmet on, it was a very small helmet and everything. It kind of grew into the helmet. So there was no openings at all. And I could breathe and see, 360. I mean, it was just really easy. And so anyway, we get in there, and Sam Jess is in front of me, and I'm watching, and she's moving her hands in all these directions and everything. And I have no idea what she's doing. It's like, did she go insane or what? But then the pod moves, right, and takes off. And so then later down the way, I'm trying to talk the captain into letting me go fly, if it's that easy. And so they agree. And of course, I have to have company. And I'm sitting there, and there's nothing there. And then they create this like light control panel where they have like a joystick, and there's buttons and stuff. And when I would put my hand around like the joystick, and I would like move my hand forward, the light thing would move with it. And so what was happening, and what I learned over a period of time, was that there is nothing there. It was the motions that I make in order to jump or to move from one place to another, and that sort of thing. And so eventually I understood what it was that they wanted me to do. And I go, but so like, if I want to jump from the moon to Mars, I go, so, it takes me, all I got to do is say jump and make a motion to like a button that used to be there, and it would take me in the proximity of Mars. And so that's kind of how that works. But I go, what if there would be something there? What if there was something that got in my way? Because I'm thinking to myself, it's instantaneous, but something could have been there, right? And then they started to explain to me that my frequency, which I was talking about before, everybody has this unique frequency. Well, it's kind of like they would put it into their computers. They don't have computers or anything, but just for a way of understanding what I'm talking about, what it does is it creates, when I get in there, that thing has my PI, which is a personal intelligence. And so it knows what I would do before I would do something. And it
Wow.
also can protect me from, and it's like kind of like the plasma you see around pictures of UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a living being that is created that has limited function, but the function that it is that they need, similar to like the suits. So if I was to run into something, or there would be something in that space where I was jumping to, then it would have made the corrections before that even happened.
Wow.
So I just thought those things were kind of cool. Yeah.
That's very cool. And you mentioned before in talking that you have contact with them daily, or you did. Is that true?
It's kind of on call. I have things that, I'm dedicated to my charity and the kids and things like that. So I have a life here. But when I'm here, all I can think about is being there. Because if you think about it, when you get used to being naked, right, it's not really practical here on Earth. You can talk it, but to walk the walk is quite different, because you have to have a different face for each individual that you meet in order to communicate, in a sense, because they're perceiving of you one way, and that's what they want, and you the same. Where when I go on the ship, I don't have any of that. It's like flipping a switch. When I go onto the ship, there is no stress or nothing, because everybody already knows everything about me. And, and I'm not trying to deceive them, because they'll know and things like that. So I'm completely free. And then the love is just absolutely incredible. And that's caused me through the year that I wrote the 5 books, is the development of what's taking place and how I have to define things, because it's not at all what I knew, all these things were. Now it's evolved into something much greater.
Wow. The Andromedan in the chat room asks, what color is the suit that they have?
Any color they want, but in particular, in the group that I'm with, it was a dark blue until we moved out of the lab ship, and because of a lot of different reasons. But now Sam Jess is more of a status, and we have this huge ship, and now they wear white. But that's the difference too, is they got these big eyes, and they're blue. And you get lost in looking into their eyes. I mean, you just can feel them so much. I mean, the emotion comes right out looking at any of them for any reason. But the people that I met from the lab ship, there are different organizations. They don't have any Army or a Navy or anything like that. They don't need it in this, once they reach that space. But I started to assume they were all like this, with the blonde hair and everything. And then one day I see them a little different. And the way the captain explained to me is like, if on our world, our military, they have a uniform and they have a code of conduct and that sort of thing. And that's similar to them in relation to they work for the whole, where there are people like when we visited some of the colonies where, it's just totally erratic. So many different things about the way that they can have their color of their hair and so on and so forth. So it's not limited to, but that is the perception that a lot of people have about Plejarens.
I'm wondering, speaking of color, when you're inside the ship, what did it look like? And also, did you see other species in there, not just humanoids like us? Or are there maybe a multi-faceted species crew on these? Or is it just one kind?
That's a really, really big question. I don't think you knew it as you was asking it, but that's why I kind of, in order to describe it to other people, I call it's a big RV, right? Like when I when I move into the ship, I'm in the living room, and which is an open space at the front of the ship, which they can do many things there. Like one time when I was, mother was giving me a ceremony, and for something that I did, they put me on a bed, and they're doing this toning and stuff and moving their hands around my body. And then as I become awake again, I'm looking, and the whole front of the ship is gone, and I'm looking out, and seeing like the moon, and it's like I'm
Wow.
right on top of it almost, and it kind of took my breath away. And so they can manipulate it in many ways, and they have this thing which I can't get used to, is where you touch the wall. Like the rooms are empty, and you walk in, you need a chair, there's a certain place on the wall that you'll touch, and a chair appears, and it's you. That what they do is they know what they want, right? What type of chair, and that's what appears. And then there are other things that are stationary, such as like the bathroom, one of the most common questions, right? You go to the bathroom, well, it's like a whatever species is there, and they can walk in there and it can sense their frequency, and it creates what it is that they need. Like
Wow.
for me, it would be like a more of a toilet, and so on and so forth. And here's a little funny story about that. They had when I'm up there for 2 or 3 days, I feel like I'm getting a little raw or something, even though that you're constantly being cleansed. But they have like what I call a shower, right? And it's like a dust that comes out, and it covers your body, right? And then it just dissipates and is gone. And that's it. It cleans your clothes. It cleans everything. And so one time I was getting with Sam Jess, and I was like, I really would like a water shower. I said, could you get me a water shower for my room? Because they gave me a room. And she says, well, okay. And so she got me a water shower, and it was just so nice to have the water pouring on me. And even though that I know this other thing works better than this. And so like one day I'm in my room, and I got like a loft, and I could hear somebody down below, and I go to see what it was. And it was one of the other crew members that was using my water shower. And when she came out, I go, what are you doing? And she goes, I just love this thing. And so now they've had to create in their community showers where they have a water shower, so.
That's so cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
You taught them something.
Yeah, I corrupt them is what I call it.
Yeah, okay.
Adrian was wondering, when you were talking about the suit that grew to accommodate you, what was the texture of it? Can you describe that?
It felt like skin. That was one of the things
I was thinking.
When I was telling you about when I picked up Sam Jess. That's what I felt. Yeah, it felt like she just had. I was touching her skin, and that's what these suits are like. So,
wow.
I mean, I've had reflections of that in other experiences too.
Julie asks, there's a couple more questions. Excuse me. The Andromedan asks, are there other races working with the Samjas group?
Many. That's an interesting topic. Again, there's so much information I can give you, but we're really limited here. But there was a time when I was with Sam Jess, and she was introducing me to the pod, right? And we came down, and it was outside of Hawaii, and she just took it down, and we went inside the water, which I've seen on, TV and stuff where they go into water. Well, we were in this pod, and here we are going into water. And I was just so excited about what I was watching and all the visual effects that was occurring. Because when you're inside, it's sealed again. The whole thing is sealed, but you can see out. You just can't see in. And anyways, she takes me down into this, I guess you would call it a ravine, these sides of 2 mountains, and really deep. And then she starts talking strangely into the air right over here. And it was like what she was doing, I didn't know at the time. She was communicating with some people she wanted me to see. And so as we go really deep, and she slows way down, and we're very deep, and it's dark. And then I see like this line occur, this like greenish line, and it made a big rectangle. And then it opened up, and behind that was this greenish light. And there was 3 of what, I would call grays. I mean, that's a whole nother topic, but you get the idea when I say grays.
Yes.
And they had 3 fingers, and they put their hands up. There was 3 of them standing there as we were there, and she like waved to them, and then we took off. And that was just the first brief introduction that I had with them. And I asked them who they were, and she said that they were the ones who brought them into this next reality, the evolution of their technology and stuff. And so later at another time, I got to actually meet them. They wanted to come and meet me, and because they knew me and Sam Jess had become so close. And this is kind of interesting too, which I think you'll enjoy, is that they have, like, I call it a holodeck room, right? Because that's the best way to describe it, where she created this environment inside of there that was similar and comfortable for both us and for these beings that were coming, the ones I call like the Greys, but they're close to 6 feet high, I guess. But anyway, and she showed me how the environment is changed so that they are accommodated with their environment while we still are accommodated to our environment. And what happens is when they came in, they can live in this type of environment that we have, but not for very long, because then they would become stressed and they're, what they need is missing. And so as they come in, she showed me this little picture, like a live picture before they got there of when they would enter. And what happens is their frequency is a signal in this specific area that we were in, where there would be like a bubble that would form around them that you don't see. And then it would also attach to us, creating the environment that we need to be in, and their environment. And you don't see it. Without the little thing that she showed me, I wouldn't know. And she showed me that it also could be expanded through an entire ship in multiple different environments. So it would be as though there was nothing there and that everybody was acclimated to the same environment. But in reality, the technology, forms those like little bubbles around each one of us, creating our personal environment.
Wow. That is.
I wonder.
No, go ahead, Augie.
I wonder, have they told you anything about the raising of consciousness that we are going through and our emerging into a higher vibratory level of existence?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. Learning from them. There's been several different events that took place that was related to spirituality, because spirituality is one of their main sources, right? But it's not thought of quite like what we think of it as. We think of where we have to sit down, we have to worship and everything else, where in them it's a natural effect of living, because it's the natural law. And that's the big thing. And to bring it down to the absolute basics is when it's almost the access to everything. And what it was is like called sensing. And what they taught me, and then I actually went out and did, was like, you don't have to have an intent, right? In order for you to access something, you don't have to sit there and figure out, we're going to create this one intent today, and then we're going to do it. Well, our intent is already natural within us, what we want to intend. Like if it's to heal somebody, or if it's to create something, a natural path in our lives or something, or, whatever it may be. So this is kind of like the access or the key to the kingdom, in a sense. What you do is that you get relaxed, sort of like in a meditation and stuff. And like I say, you don't have to prepare for anything, because whatever's been in you a lot lately is going to be your true intent already. So you just sit there and relax, empty your mind, and then bring up something of unconditional love that you've had, right? Something that meant so much to you and is such a deep memory that it's easy to recall. Like for me, my go-to was the first child that I rescued. And what I do is I see that event taking place and unfolding, and I keep replaying that in my mind over and over again till it suddenly becomes as though it's happening right now. And I'm feeling that love, and I'm starting to see things that I didn't see in the actual memory, like a little wrinkles in their clothes or something like that. And when that reaches a certain point, you're activated into what it is that you want, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, like, just on the simplest level, right? Again, Sam Jess came down here, and we wanted to introduce her, to here, which we've had some fun things we did and things, but one in particular is she hates my Jeep. because, I think she's motion sick. She gets motion sick. So anyways, I gave her this terrifying ride for 15 minutes to the beach. And there's this area of the beach here, which you can still find in Fort Myers, but where you could go, and the only thing on the beach was natural trash, leaves and things like that. And it was very dark, and we pulled in right up onto the beach, and I put a blanket on my hood, and of course it was awesome because she got on there and slid right off. And so anyways, we corrected that, and we were sitting there, and she has a similar thing. That's a whole long story too. To me, things that really attract us, and that was like looking into the sky. And so we're sitting there and looking, and I'm seeing things moving, and she goes, "What are you thinking?" And I said, "I want to talk to those guys, because I didn't know if they're the same or not." And she goes, "Well, duh." She goes, "We just taught you the sensing." She goes, "Just go into your sensing. You've already, know what you want to do. You don't have to think about that. Just find that space of unconditional love." And as I did, all of a sudden I heard, "Hello." And the first thing that came out of my head was greetings and salutations. It's like, why the hell did I say that? Right. And I looked at Sam just because I just realized I heard somebody. Right. And she goes, "Yeah, I heard it too." And so it gives you access to everything. And that's why I was talking about there's this love. Love is what's the missing ingredient in us. And, when I'm writing this, it's like I keep writing love, and it's like I'm just getting so frustrated with, this is stupid. Why is anybody going to pay attention to me just for keep repeating the love thing? It's because it's the omni-importance. And the definition of love is so far different each time that you experience it and are consciously aware of that. So their spirituality is part of their being. Unlike us, where we take a moment to set aside or we go somewhere to be spiritual, they understand that they're already spiritual. They're just having the physical experience, right? So it can come anywhere at any time, and it's just a natural thing, and it doesn't have to be formal or anything. Or it can be personal, or it can be a group. It's just a natural part of like breathing to us.
Wow.
Did they ever talk about anything that, the dark side of society here is planning things and so on? And I think we have it pretty much put on hold. But did they ever talk about anything, a disruption of society by something that might have happened?
Yeah. That's where a lot of things part ways with what we think, right? As we see these movies and we see evil aliens and things like that. I think I want to start with just that there are different species. I've met a whole lot of species, and they're rather unified. They're still individuals, but they work together, right? Because they're what I call humanoid. They have a head, 2 arms, 2 legs, right? Although other features may be quite different. But those are the kind of people that I meet. I don't meet like the ones that I would call bugs, like some people call like reptilians and things like that, because it's like the consciousness of being able to communicate and feel, and the emotion, all those things are quite different between us and them. But they have reached that port. Once they become interstellar, they have the intelligence to understand natural law. So they abide by natural law, and like the people I'm with, abide by natural law. And so there's no conflict in that. And there's, but they aren't able to communicate very well. So they kind of keep to their way, and the humanoid type creatures keep to their way. So
different interpretation of it.
Yeah. And then when you look at evolution, what they told me, they was part of our seed, right? And it isn't like Darwin, where you see this evolution. It wasn't anything like that at all. The way they explained it to me was like you have a tree, right? You have all these leaves. And as these leaves fall off, they're like different species, and they hit the ground running, right? And they take off, and then they exist for a while, and then they die off. And then another one takes off until it came to us, where we were able to overcome a lot of those things that the other species failed. And so now, we're at a point that we've reached that we could always kill ourselves or we could make our own way. And the reason that this consciousness, the way their form of contact, is to help us change our consciousness, because just like right now, we're on the brink of a war. And they understand too that if we fail, we'll just do it again in a different form and in a different way. So as far as them coming to save us, no, that's up to us. Because once we reach a certain level of consciousness, which is what the plan is with these people that they're, teaching the kids, the ones that I'm not allowed to be a contactee of, then our consciousness will be prepared to receive them. Because, it's like you take, for an example, if you was to, an alien race was going to come to a civilization that was advancing, and they wanted to give them something harmless, like a way of providing water for everybody at all times. Well, if they weren't conscious or ready consciously, they would turn that into a weapon or blackmail or that sort of thing, and it would destroy their society. So then the aliens would be responsible for our own destruction because we weren't ready. So if we're waiting for them to come to us in that sense to save us, it ain't happening. But the plan is if this works, which they believe it will, within 50 or 75 years, by planting these people in with their consciousness and adding into thetheir brains that little additive of love, then we will be ready and we will be able to accept them.
So I have a question before we close. How many times, if any, were you moved to tears when you suddenly began experiencing the majesty, the ecstasy, the bliss of their love?
I hate it. And that's not me, right? To leak. But being with them, you can't help it. And that's why I say, like, when I write in the book, I keep mentioning love, and it started to bother me. It's like, how is anybody going to pay attention? But it's necessary. And when I'm with them, the emotion, the beauty of them, it's like I taught them how to hug, right? I taught them how to shake hands. And so when I go on board the ship, it takes a whole friggin' hour for me to get around the ship because I have to go and say hi to each one.
Wow.
And the difference is that when we love or when we hug, right, there's something about it that's transformative, and you merge with that other individual and you feel them and you feel what's coming from them. You feel their love for you and you feel that flow of love to them coming from yourself. And it's addictive. And so the hug lasts as long as it's going to last, but I still complain about it.
It's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. We have 4 minutes left, Augie. Do you want to ask your famous question, or?
Yeah, I do, but I got another one, a little one first, and that is that looking into the future, are you worried or are you comfortable?
There is no future. There's just now. There's no time.
Okay, the physical expression of it. I'm not giving up on this one.
Yeah. Well, I hope for the best, and I'll live my life because that's what I can control.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's what we are doing on the Mastermind also on Sundays. We create the future. You remember the saying, that the best way to predict the future is to create it? But nobody knows how. So that's what we're doing on the Mastermind. And I think it's going okay so far.
Well, I'll give you a Shaolin theory of that. And that is to live in the past robs the future. To live in the future robs the present. So all we have is now.
Yeah.
True.
That's right. Let me ask you one question. And I ask a lot of people this, and there are many different answers. And that is, if you could talk to the whole world right now and the world was listening, what would you tell them?
Hey!
I like it.
I'm not here to influence anybody. I'm not here to make anybody leave my path. I'm just to share to my experience. And if it resonates with them, that's absolutely beautiful, and they can take it to wherever they want to go. If they don't resonate with it, great. You can go find that self-destruction and horror and, I don't know, doom and gloom. It's not for me.
That's beautiful. I like it.
We're not going to save everybody, but we're going to save the ones that wants to.
Yeah.
Well, our time is up. I just want to thank everybody in the chat room. Really good conversation that went on there. Thank you so much, Z. And please, we would love to have you back on, maybe to talk about what you do with the children. That'll be a special show. Yes? All right, wonderful.
Yeah, and there's a lot more here too.
Yes, of course. Everybody wants you to come back, so it's set. It's set. We'll get dates.
Yeah, tell us also where people can connect with you. You just said YouTube and your website again, so they can find you.
Yeah, you can go like the Plejaren Diaries, and you can see or comment there, and you see kind of my connections. I've got an email there and stuff, or you can go to my website, which is thequestecss.org, or if it's easier to remember, endingchildsexslavery.org. And I've got my address on there and my phone number. I'm not hiding from anybody, so I'm easy to find.
Sounds good.
Bless you. Bless you. Really great. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody in the chat room. Thanks, Mac. We're going to be back next Tuesday, but before next Tuesday, we're going to have the Friday evening show, the Quantum Wellbeing Show. I'm still trying to get a hold of a doctor, because there's huge requests, who's going to talk about healing with natural remedies and natural, I don't want to say... Supplements. I was going to say nutraceuticals, but that doesn't sound great, right? So natural supplements, natural remedies. Hang tight, guys. I'm hoping to have him by Friday. If not, we'll talk about something great anyway. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for being here. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.